STEKOM YouTube channel also. Before I start this event, I will read our agenda this afternoon. First, we will start class presentation by Miss Hanna, and then continue with the Q&A session and time for picture for documentation, and last session time for closing. Okay, let's welcome to the Miss Hanna. Miss Hanna, yeah, we will start for this class today. For Miss Hanna, the time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. So, dear participants, let's start. I'm sharing my screen. You can see my screen now, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's start. So, as you have already mentioned, the topic of my today's lecture is communication in a globalized world, a strong cultural influence. Again, as you have already also mentioned, I'm from University of Customs and Finance. I have had already opportunity to communicate with you. That's why I just shortly remind about my scientific sphere of research. So I have PhD in political science connected with political language, and I am associate professor. And I have developed a lot of different courses connected with communication. And first of all, communication in international relations at international level. So you can see it's international business communication and other courses. So that's why I suppose it will be interesting for you to analyze different aspects of international communications in today's world, which is of course globalized. Yeah, I suppose that even our today communication, it's a very good example, bright example of globalization, yeah, because we communicate in English, we are from different countries, yeah, we use Zoom as a mean of communication. So we have all like features of globalization right now. And of course, this process influences very much all spheres of our lives. First of all, economical sphere, but also other ones, of course, cultural sphere too. It's just very short definition of globalization, just to remind you the main ideas of this phenomenon. Yeah. So as for me, the main maybe synonym, yeah, for the term globalization, it is interdependence. So we can say that our today's world is globalized because it is interdependent. Yeah. It is interdependence between or among, first of all, different countries, international organizations, companies, people, and so on. And you can see this definition. Yes, that's first of all, it's about, of course, economies, but also it is cultures and population too. Today, of course, we discussed, first of all, cultural component of globalization. It's rather controversial issue, because if we are talking about globalization in economic terms, of course, it's objective process. No, it's my opinion that it's objective process, and it like naturally takes place. But if we are talking about globalization in cultural sphere, yeah, it can cause different questions. Arises different questions, because maybe you have heard something about global culture, yeah, and it is rather, as I have already mentioned, rather controversial phenomena. It's about standardization of cultural expressions, yeah, and there is a big question. From the one hand, we have a lot of cultures, and during all today's lecture, I will stress the main idea that cultural diversity, when we celebrate all cultures, it's the main idea. But from the other hand, we have, or maybe we don't have, it's a question, so-called global culture. And you can see definition of cultural globalization on your screen. Yeah, it's when we are talking about one global culture, which is convenient to use to communicate. It is connected with language. We'll discuss today English. Can we say that, for example, English is a global language, or no. Today, our today's communication in English, yeah, it's maybe one of the reason why English is really global language. But from the other hand, all over the world, we have a lot of languages, and we should develop, protect all of this language. So it's about globalization, but let's continue with our main topic, with communication. And as I have already mentioned, let's start from the discussion. Is really English is a global language? Again, it's rather controversial issues because, you know, we can mention other languages which have a lot of speakers like Chinese or French or German or Spanish or other languages, yeah. But why English? Yeah, and please pay your attention that there is a rather popular definition for global language, lingua franca. Yeah, it's like synonym for global language. That's why you can find a lot of like definitions of English is lingua franca. It's the same as the global language. I can see in chat, maybe there is, okay, thank you. I suppose it was a question. Okay, so let's continue. So English is a global language or as lingua franca. And we have some numbers, yeah? We can say that now more than 350 million people around the world speak in English as a first language. You can see more people, they speak English as a second language. And the third reason why we can say the English is global, because there are a lot of English speakers in most countries around the world. But what's more interesting, why we can say English is global language? Because it's language of international communication. Due to different reasons, due to historical reasons, first of all, yeah, also due to economic reasons. English, it's rather convenient language for communication. And, you know, maybe you have heard such interesting definition is globish. It's global plus English. It is so-called globish. It's a very specific kind of English as a language. Here we can say that there is British English, American English, Australian, Canadian English, and so on. But there is rather specific, interesting, like kind of English, globish, global plus English, yeah, with the different accents, yeah, because, you know, a lot of speakers from different countries use English as means of international communication. And in this case, we can say that really English, it's a global language because it's language of international business. It's language of study, of international study. Yeah, and again, I have already mentioned today we communicate in English, and we are from different countries, and we use this means of communication. So maybe it's really global language. So I want to show you short video. One moment, please. Connected with this idea. So let's start.
English in the West.
Is sound is normal and picture, yeah? Yeah? Okay, thank you.
The English language has existed for a little over 1,500 years, which, in the grand scheme of things, is just a blip in the history of human language, and an even smaller blip in the history of humankind. The language is called English because of its associations with England, which sounds straightforward enough, although it's actually a bit more complicated than this. English had its roots here, in the north of Europe, although of course it wasn't called English then. There were a number of Germanic tribes, the Angles, Saxons and the Jutes, who crossed the Channel. It wasn't called the English Channel until the 18th century, and fanned out across the island of Great Britain, which at the time was inhabited by Britons who spoke Celtic languages, the ancestors of Welsh, Scottish Gaelic and Cornish. Before the Anglo-Saxons arrived, the Romans had also colonised large parts of the island, along with people from various parts of the Roman Empire. Later the Vikings came, and then the Normans, all speaking their own languages, and also mixing their languages with English. It wasn't until the 14th century that English became properly established as the language of England and was used for the first time in Parliament and in the law. The first King of England to speak English as his native language was Henry IV. Henry came to the throne in 1399, almost 1,000 years after the Anglo-Saxons arrived. But once English was established, it also began to spread, or more accurately, it began to be spread. The most important driver for this was colonialism. In lots of countries, English pushed out the local language and indigenous forms of English developed. In other countries, English existed alongside the local languages, and new forms developed. In the 20th century, it continued to spread through the entertainment industry, politics, the media, and technology, so that today it's a truly global language. Throughout its history, it's always changing. And will continue to do so, far into the future.
So it was like short history of English, and the main idea, the main reason for us to watch this video, it was to analyze that really English is a global language. You can see that English is evolving, yeah, and again we can say this globish, yeah, global plus English, it's new form of evolution of English. It's even interesting, yeah, in this video, it was obviously British accent, yeah, if we are talking about narrator in this video, yeah. But again, there are different forms, and global English can be rather useful instrument for communication, and today we use this instrument of communication. And again, why it is important to know English, I suppose you understand it well, and you know English very well, yeah, because you use this means of communication. And of course, if we are talking about globalization, yeah, and multinational companies or transnational companies, they very often requires a certain degree of English proficiency. So if we want to have a position with a top company, we should know English well. So it was first part of my lecture about globalization and English. Let's turn to next one, cultural diversity. As for me, as I have already mentioned, is one of the main concepts because it is important in all dimensions, yeah, in political one, in cultural one. If put it simply, there are different cultures all over the world. And we should develop all of them. I like this term very much, to celebrate. Yeah, we should celebrate all cultures all over the world. It's the main idea. And during today's lecture, we'll discuss that communication of representatives of different cultures. It can be like very interesting process, very beneficial one, because you know we can have experience from different countries. Yeah, we can exchange our ideas and so on. So it's interesting, it's beneficial, and also of course it is challenging because of cultural background. Yeah, a culture affects us very much, all our life, yeah, our behavior, our ideas, our thoughts, of course, our style of communication. And it's very important and interesting also. It's like a journey, yeah, to understand it and to communicate with people from different countries. So cultural diversity, you can find a lot of information about this term. As I have already mentioned, it's a rather important one in different dimensions. No, it's one of the definition. Maybe it's rather complicated, but it's rather popular one. let's analyze from sociologist Rosada. He made it's a system of beliefs and behavior. And please pay your attention, it's connected with the presence of all diverse group. And we acknowledge and values these differences. So difference, it's not only normal, it's good, it's very well when we have differences, yeah? And we can communicate with each other, but at the same time, we should overcome different barriers, like cultural barriers, language barriers, and so on. But it's our objective reality, and we should adapt to it. So it's not so, the second definition, not so difficult as the first one. So cultural diversity is about bringing people together from a diverse background and cultures. And please pay your attention, I'm sorry, to the idea which is placed in the end of this slide, that cultural diversity creates a space for people to be authentically themselves. It's very important, I suppose you can agree with me, to be ourselves, yeah, and cultural diversity is one of the components of such process, because we know we have already discussed with you during our previous meeting, yeah, our previous lecture, and I suppose you know a lot about culture and its influence on our life. So culture, of course, it's a very important component of our identity. And if we are talking about cultural diversity, it's a way to be authentically ourselves. I suppose it's crucial. It has crucial importance. Also, please pay your attention for another term which is connected very much with cultural diversity. It's multiculturalism. And there is definition from Encyclopedia Britannica. It's views that culture, race, and ethnicities so deserve special acknowledgement of their differences. It's again about different cultures. And let's discuss particular points why it is important, yeah, why we should develop and protect cultural diversity. You know, you can like make an experiment to type to Google, yeah, cultural diversity, and you find so many like sources of information, because it's really one of the main concepts in today's global communication, because it has like objective background. Why? Because due to the fact, yeah, that people from a lot of countries can communicate, and of course we can communicate remotely, yeah, as we do it now, and it's also one of the elements of globalization. And we can communicate with people from different countries. So the importance of cultural diversity. The main idea, yeah, recognizing that there is a large amount of culture that exists. It's the first point. Next, so we should recognize it. And then the next point, we should respect differences. You know, if we want to understand other people, first of all, we should understand which differences we have. And the second step, we should respect difference. And from the other hand, other people should respect our own specific. And in this case, in this way, we respect each other. Next one, we should acknowledging that all cultural expressions are valid. All cultures, you understand well that, for example, it can be well-developed culture. No, I suppose you know a lot, for example, about so-called American culture, Hollywood, yeah. Maybe you have heard such term as westernization. It's one of the form of globalization, when Western values are spread all over the world due to entertainment sphere. I have already mentioned Hollywood, yeah, or it can be through business and so on. Or, for example, we can take another country like India. They can spread their own culture through cinema too. For example, in this case, we can mention Bollywood, yeah, and so on. And it's from the one hand, we have well-developed cultures, but from the other hand, it can be small group of people who have their own culture, specific culture, yeah. Of course, these like examples, they have different resources, yeah. Not all cultures have Hollywood or Bollywood to promote their identity. But one of the main ideas of cultural diversity is that all cultural expressions are equal and are valid. Next idea, we should value in what culture have to bring to the table. Again, it's beneficial for all participants of communication. Empowering diverse group to contribute. And the last but not least, yeah, we should not just tolerate difference, but celebrate them. We should understand clearly that it's a source of our development, of our communication, and so on. But as I have already mentioned, and you understand it well, I suppose I just want to stress that it can be specific in communication if we are talking about cultural diversity. So let's watch short video about specific, yeah, how we can communicate using this concept of cultural diversity. So cultural diversity in communication.
Cultural diversity is about accepting and respecting people's differences. After all, in order to communicate effectively, you need to understand your audience and deliver your message in a way that will make the most sense to your audience. So, when the audience is culturally diverse, the challenge is to understand their differences and be sensitive to how your message will be received. Let's explain 4 ways to communicate better in today's diverse workplace. 1. Keep your language clear and simple, as you may not share the same first language. Avoid jargon, slang terms, and colloquial expressions. 2. Different cultures have different non-verbal forms of communication. So, make sure that you are not ignorant of differences in body language. For example, consider personal space and touching habits of different cultures. Consider how appropriate handshaking, embraces, or direct eye contact is. 3. To make sure that you understand perfectly well, paraphrase or repeat what you hear. This will minimize misunderstandings. 4. Be open and inclusive of other cultures by getting to know colleagues from different cultural backgrounds. This will help build relationships. As you get to know their cultures better, you will also communicate more effectively with colleagues. Communicating effectively in a culturally diverse environment requires tact and sensitivity. So, the better you know other cultures, the more effectively you can communicate in a diverse workplace.
So the main idea, yeah, we have mentioned that we should understand differences, and we should understand the point that, for example, if we are talking about English as a means of communication, that, as for me, English is not my native language, yeah, so it's like I should pay attention to understand what I understand from other people and so on. So we should pay attention to these differences, especially when we are using language. And we have already discussed during our previous meeting, yeah, that non-verbal communication, it can be very tricky one, yeah. For example, personal space, yeah. It can be different ones for different countries. And we should know it and use it in our everyday communication. How to support cultural diversity? You know, we have already stressed that it's not just about acknowledgement cultural diversity. We also should support and should celebrate cultural diversity. And, you know, it's not always easy to adapt to it. During our today's lecture, later, we also discussed so-called cultural shock. Maybe you have heard something about it. It's when person like find herself or himself in a new culture. For example, to study abroad, yeah, or it can be connected with tourism or with our work abroad, yeah. And when we must communicate with people from different culture, yeah, and all people around us from different culture, it can be rather difficult like situation. I mean, first of all, in psychological sense. And for this case, we have such term as cultural shock. And it's normal to have cultural shock for a while, but then we should adapt and to overcome this cultural shock. So the main point that it's not easy, but beneficial and interesting to communicate with people from other countries. So if we want to develop our cultural diversity skills, or we have another definition, multicultural competence. Yeah, I suppose you agree with me that it's crucial in today's globalized world to have multicultural competence. And it's important to stress that we can and we should develop our multicultural competence. So it's not just we have it and that's all. It's something that we should develop, pay attention to it. So interact with people outside of our culture. Again, due to modern technologies, we can do it even not leaving our house. Yeah, I mean internet, and we can communicate with people all over the world. Next one, very important in psychological way, it's be open-minded. Yeah, we should, again, it's about differences. We should understand and acknowledge these differences and even celebrate them. Next one, if you see anyone who is being culturally, insensitive, we should speak out against it. You know, it's very strict rule to be cultural sensitive, to celebrate these differences, cultural diversity. And if we see that someone or anyone who is doesn't do it, we should speak out against it. Accept the differences. Next one, again, connected with psychological moment. Don't force your beliefs on people with opposite views. And advocate, to hire people or work with people who are not within you same culture. It's again interesting experience, and we should pay attention to it. Read literature and learn from different cultures. As for me, I can say that I like very much to watch foreign films in English, first of all, because I know English as a foreign language. So I like to watch, for example, British films or Indian films in English, if they're in English, or maybe American ones. And, you know, it's a great source of information, yeah, when we can watch these movies and understand everyday life of other people. Or we can watch films, for example, from other countries with translation and so on. So it's interesting. And you know, one more idea I want to stress, it's about different foreign languages. Yeah, it's a good idea to learn new languages. It's very useful for our brain. And also, I suppose you know that every language is connected very much with culture. Yeah, so in language, there are different elements connected not only with some structure of languages, grammar, and so on, but also with culture. And, you know, if we are talking about professional translators, for example, if they use English as the first, you know, translators, they know not only one foreign language, but one main language. And for example, if we are talking about translators for whom English or French or German or another one is the main language. So they pay a lot of attention to the culture of this country, because if they want to understand language and provide proper translation, they need to understand culture of this country. So learn a new language, it's a good idea. It's a very interesting. It's something that develops our brain, and also it's rather convenient. I mean, if we are talking about international business, international career, you have to know foreign languages and to use them into our communication. So let's continue with multicultural organization and multicultural teams. I suppose you know a lot about teams, yeah, team building. You know, there is a huge difference, for example, between group of people and team, because effective, if we are talking about team, we have effective interaction. Group of people is just like formal group of people with some formal duties and so on. But in team we have people who have a high level of motivation. They can interact very intensively, and they can achieve great results. Comparing with group, just formal group, because you know that's why a lot of literature is devoted to differences between groups and teams, and there are a lot of tips how to build team. And you know, the next step, it's a good idea, I suppose, very good idea, to build not just team but multicultural team, when representatives of different countries are included in this team. And you know, today we also discuss the role of leader, yeah, how to manage such team, because of different conflicts that can arise due to our different cultural background in multicultural team. But from the other hand, we can say that multicultural teams are the most effective ones if we compare them with other types of team. So in general, an organization which is organized by a diverse workforce, it is so-called multicultural organization. And again, the main idea then, in today's globalized world, we have more and more multicultural organizations. First of all, it's business, international business, so-called multinational or transnational corporations. And of course, in this case, we are talking about international organizations like the United Nations, the European Union, and the other ones. It's like obvious example of multicultural organizations. So main idea, people from different countries, religions, and so on, they have equal opportunities. It's the main idea, without any discrimination. And every leader and employee working in such organization, which are globally operated, they require multicultural skills. I have already mentioned this definition, multicultural competence, which we should develop. And you know, I suppose we can develop our multicultural skills or competence all our life, because it's like interesting process when we want to know more about other countries, other cultures, and so on. And we can say that such multinational organizations, they are very influential. For example, European Union's committees or United Nations office, it's a good example. So multicultural competence, let's discuss it in detail. Its definition: understanding your own culture and other cultural identities, and effectively employing cultural skills during cross-cultural interactions. Please pay your attention that, you know, a lot of attention is paid to understanding other culture, yeah? but it's the second step. The first one is to understand our own culture, to understand clearly our cultural identity, and the next step, the second one, to understand cultural identities of our partners, and then interact, communication, communicate. So understanding your own identity, then other cultures' identity, and communicate with each other. So it's on the picture you can see so-called the culture wheel, and we have already mentioned about so-called culture iceberg. When we mentioned there are so many components and so many components, in culture, and some of them visible, but most of them are invisible. For example, we can understand that person from the other culture because of language of this person, maybe dress of this person, food and drink, they are rather specific for different culture, but it's maybe dance, maybe non-verbal communication. It's all have obvious cultural background, cultural features, cross-cultural features. But again, there are so many components of culture that are invisible, like values, motivations, beliefs, and so on. That's something that we can just see. We should pay attention to understand it. So what should we do to have multicultural competence? As we have mentioned, a basic understanding of our own culture, to understand our roots, our identity, because it's difficult to understand another culture if you are not familiar with your own. A willingness to learn about the culture practices. And next one, psychological one, but very important, positive attitude toward cultural differences and readiness to accept and respect those differences. Because, we used to live in our country, for example, or in our culture, and people around us, they are sharing the same ideas. And it's normal to communicate in a specific way. But when we are in another cultural environment, it can be tricky one to understand what is going on, and it may be strange for us, but nevertheless we should have this positive attitude. I have mentioned in some cases we even can have cultural shock, but we can overcome it. So cultural shock, what it is. We have mentioned that culture shapes the way people see the world, and also it can be very important for us, our belief system, our values, it's maybe our basis, because due to our values we do something. If we are talking about our activity as person, it's determined by our values. We want to achieve something and so on. And what is more important for us to stress now, it's these values are culturally determined. And, it's easy to be unaware of this tremendous impact culture plays in our lives when we are surrounded by individuals who share the same ideas. But when we find ourselves in a cultural different from the one we are accustomed to, we may experience this cultural shock, so-called cultural shock. So first of all, we should stress that it's normal process. It's normal, when you live in one culture and then you live in another one and you don't understand, we can say, the rules, because these rules are rather normal for people from this new country for you, but you don't understand what is going on. It's normal process of what? Of adaptation to a new culture. It's a time when a person becomes aware of difference and or conflicts, And I have found for you a video about, I suppose it will be, I believe it will be interesting for you. It's about cultural shock who have been experienced by international students. Yeah, they shared their experience when they go abroad, and they have these problems connected with cultural shock. So let's watch this short video, Studying Abroad, Cultural Shock.
Hi, I'm Christy. I'm from New York and I did an exchange year in the UK.
My name is Val. I'm from Bulgaria and I studied in Denver, Colorado.
I'm Stephanie from Hong Kong and I study in Newcastle University.
Hi, I'm Aria. I'm from Australia and I studied in Fairfax, Virginia.
My name is Emmanuel. I'm from Nigeria and I study in London.
It was really exciting to see the architecture, the culture and the people.
When I went there, everybody was really good with me and helped me with everything.
I guess we were so used to watching like English movies when we were back in Nigeria. So actually being here and seeing it for, in real, we were very excited.
As you go though, it starts to become a little bit more daunting.
I started to miss things that I was used to having around me all the time. I missed my friends and my family.
I was so used to seeing them all the time that, now that we were so far away, it was quite hard.
I felt homesick and then I felt sad and really want to go back to home.
I'd never been away from my parents from longer than a couple of weeks at a time, and that was really hard.
Some people warned me about this phase, the culture shock.
Culture shock.
Culture shock.
The infamous culture shock.
I think one of the biggest differences was just the phrases they used.
The accents was very difficult to kind of understand.
Mate,
Hit the town.
And everything was always brilliant. Seriously? No, it's not.
knackered.
It swings and roundabouts.
Seriously, what does that mean?
I was really overwhelmed.
I felt overwhelmed with everything really.
I guess just the way of life, it was very busy and
New people, new university, new surroundings.
It was quite hard to get around at first.
you had cabs, you had trains, you had buses, and
You have to just work out, which one to take, which one not to take.
And believe it or not, the food is different.
I tend to really crave Nigerian food
I really miss Chinese food.
I really miss my mom's cooking and my grandma's as well.
because my cooking, to be honest, is terrible.
So that's when I realized I needed to learn how to cook.
So I ended up cooking a lot at home, but I think the best part of that was I started to bond with my flatmates a lot more.
So yeah, I'm learning.
When I was feeling a bit homesick, someone suggested that maybe I speak to the welfare advisors.
And they reassured me that I wasn't the only one who felt overwhelmed.
And one of the things they suggested was, try and decorate my room to make it feel a little bit more homely.
After a while, I started to get more comfortable here.
I joined badminton societies and I really met lots of English people there, and I felt like my English got improved.
I started talking to people a lot and feel more confident in myself and my language.
Everything started to feel a little bit more normal. I made more friends, I started going out more, socializing a little bit.
That was a big transition for me. It made me feel, a lot more at home.
I managed to adjust to the new culture.
And I adjust to the weather, the food, and the language.
And I ended up making so many friends, both international and both, people from here.
To be honest, it was the best decision I've ever made, even though there were some challenges.
I learned a lot inside the classroom and about myself.
It's really transformed my life completely, and I literally feel like this is home for me now.
Okay, so I see something in chat. One moment. So it's a question, yeah? I can answer now, yeah? Or it's at the end? Yeah, now. Okay, so one moment. So how has cultural globalization influenced food and drink, and also what is the major issue of cultural globalization? you know, I suppose if you ask how has cultural globalization influenced food and drink, I can say McDonald's. Yeah, I suppose everyone has ever visited McDonald's, and it's a symbol of globalization. And you know, it's interesting that McDonald's, you can like or dislike it, yeah, but they have their restaurants all over the world, yeah. And also it, you know, it's not just to eat something, it's like American way of eating, we can say, yeah, or Western way of eating something and drinking, for example, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, and so on. It's example of cultural globalization, I suppose, that can influence food and drink. And, you know, if we are talking about the major issue of cultural globalization, as for me, it's about cultural diversity. Yeah, we should protect all cultures that we have all over the world. Because again, if we take so-called American culture or Western culture, such cultures, they have so many resources. Yeah, they can influence all countries because of these resources. But all cultures, they deserve to develop. And it's very important to protect all cultures all over the world. I suppose it's the major issue of cultural globalization. Am I answering? Or maybe, yeah, okay. So we can continue with this. It's, you know, thank you for this question very much. Because, you know, as I have already mentioned, cultural globalization, it's so controversial process, yeah. From the one hand, we have this process because, again, even today we use in English, and it's one of the main component of cultural globalization. And we have mentioned that language is connected with culture. And, you know, when we are using specific language, in some way, we are sharing cultural values of this language. So if we are talking about using English, in this case, we also sharing some values of Western cultures. And again, so it's controversial issue, and you can find opposite position, opposite opinions in this case, but we should analyze it, and cultural diversity is the main answer is for me. And that's why I pay so much attention to cultural diversity in my lecture. So cultural shock, we have watched video. I like this video very, very much because, you know, it's very personal. Yeah, these students, they share their not only like positive features, positive elements of their study abroad, but also some problems. Yeah, but they did it honestly. Yeah, that it's not like everything is a fairy tale. Yeah, everything brilliant, and that's all. It's not true. Of course, they and other students, other participants of international programs and so on, all of us, we can have these problems and even cultural shock, but it's normal, and the answer is to adapt to it. Yeah. So next one, how to manage multicultural team. Again, it's again as with the multicultural competence. It's not something that we have automatically. We should develop it. Again, if we are talking about multicultural teams, it's not just to get together people from different countries, and that's also we have multicultural team. Everybody is happy, and we have great results. It's not doesn't work in such a way. We should manage multicultural team. And today we also pay attention to the role of leader, or we can say leader or project manager or another person who is responsible for managing multicultural team. So the employees are encouraged and have wide viewpoints in different areas in some organizations. It's because of different cultural background. And, you know, it can be very beneficial. For example, it can improve customer service. Why? If you are talking about multinational corporation, and it's easy to understand that if it is multicultural corporation, and if they sold something, they have international audience. I mean, customers from all over the world. Yeah. And from marketing, we know if we want to sell something, we should understand needs of our customer. Yeah, and of course, culture influence these needs very much influence. And that's why if you want to understand customers from different countries, it's a good idea to have in our multicultural teams representatives of this culture. It's one of the reasons why it can be beneficial for company to have employees from different countries. But of course, there are always but, yeah. It can be a lot of problems connected with communication, so-called cross-cultural communication between the employees. There we will discuss how to overcome it later. So what is multicultural team? Its definition, it's rather easy one, but let's pay attention to it. It's a composition of team members of the working people who are from different cultural backgrounds. It's again, it's an example of cultural diversity. And it's if we take this specific organization. And also let's watch a short video about main challenges and main benefits of such communication. So the benefits and challenges of a diverse team.
The benefits and challenges of a diverse team. In an era of increased globalization, evolving family structures, and highly developed technology, the tendency to create a diverse work environment is almost occurring naturally. Employees can now be full-time remote workers, work internationally, or span across several generations throughout the current workforce. Having a diverse team comes with its own set of benefits and challenges. The benefits of having a diverse workforce include 1. Strong dynamic. As employees learn from the different backgrounds and skill sets of their colleagues, diversity helps them to become better communicators and collaborators. 2. Productive problem solving. A diverse team brings with it a wide range of thought processes and perspectives. 3. Boosted morale. When employees feel part of a team where they feel accepted and their individuality is nurtured, morale increases and the work environment is productive. However, diverse teams also come with some challenges, including 1. Communication barriers. With a diverse team, some team members may be native speakers of another language. Understanding the language of each other as best as possible can lead to less of a communication barrier. 2. Culture clashes. When multiple cultures meet, culture clashes are common. This has a direct bearing on the team's performance and workflow. 3. Slower decision-making. Diverse teams may also open up the door for more debates and arguments, which can lead to fewer decisions being made. The responsibility of every HR executive is to create teams that will maximize these benefits and overcome challenges. A diverse team can make your company a winner in the marketplace by generating and implementing great ideas, building collaboration, and celebrating teamwork. If you want to know more about developing a diverse team,
so you can see that there are a lot of information opinions, ideas about benefits and challenges of multicultural teams. You know why? Because it's rather practical issue. Yeah, from the one hand, we have a lot of examples of multicultural teams, and from the other hand, we should manage it. If we take like main definitions, we can say that all teams can be divided into two big groups. If you take cultural factor, I mean, it can be homogeneous or heterogeneous group. It's homogeneous team. It's of course there are a lot of homogeneous team, but it's not a point of our discussion today. It's when team members they have similar background, and also they have their own benefits and maybe problems. But as for me, it's much more interesting and much more effective to work in multicultural team. So, or another name for multicultural team, it's heterogeneous team. But please pay your attention that such type of team can be divided into three main groups. So-called talking team. We will discuss what does it mean. Next one, it is so-called bicultural team. And the last one, it's like classical example, multicultural team. I mean that we have, you can guess from the name that in, for example, bicultural team, we have representatives of only two cultures. If we are talking about like classical understanding of heterogeneous team, it is of course multicultural team when we have people from different countries, more than two countries. So let's step by step. Talking team, it's a very specific type of heterogeneous team. When we have one team member from different culture background compared to other team members. For example, a team of British lawyers with one Canadian attorney, and here the Canadian attorney would be this talking member. Yeah, so it's specific type of bicultural team, but it's interesting that only one person represents other culture. In this case, Canada, and all other people or all other persons in this team, they are British. Bicultural teams members, so we have two culture in this team. And the last but not least, of course, it's multicultural teams, which is consists of at least 3 or more ethnic background member. And we have mentioned, I suppose you may agree or disagree with it, with this idea, but they say that such team becomes more effective, dynamic, and productive. So if we are talking again about globalization, you remember, yes, that the topic of our today's lecture is cultural communication dimension of globalization. Again, if we are talking about globalization, there are so many opposite views to this process. There are so-called anti-globalists, for example, from the one hand. From the other hand, so many people, they support globalization. Again, it's a controversial issue. As if you are interested in my personal point of view, I suppose, as I have already mentioned, that globalization, it's objective process, it's natural process, and we just should adapt to it. Of course, this process has its own advantages and disadvantages, and it's really that more developed countries, they adjusted well for this process, because, you know, globalization, it's like international competition and international level. And of course, more developed countries, they like more equipped to take part in this competition. So we can, in this case, we can say that injustice is one of the disadvantages of globalization. But again, we have resources to overcome this negative result or disadvantage of globalization. So let's not discuss in detail this phenomenon, because it's not the main topic of our lecture. But if you want, we can discuss during Q&A session. Okay. So if we take cultural dimension of globalization, we can say it's really objective reality that in today's global business environment, we have really international or multinational, multicultural teams. And, you know, I suppose you know a lot about multicultural corporation. So, we have a question. Yes. So, what role does strong cultural influence play in shaping effective communication strategies in a globalized world? And how can educators integrate cross-cultural communication into the curriculum to better prepare students for the challenge of navigating diverse cultural context? Okay, thank you very much for your question. My answer will be the next. If we are talking, let's begin, if you don't mind, from the second part of this question. Yeah, if we are talking about educators, I suppose that educators should start from themselves. Yeah, It's not only about knowledge of cultural diversity, of cross-cultural communication. It's like way of life. And I suppose if person is going to educate other people about cross-cultural communication, this person should practice cross-cultural communication. So, you know, it's, as for me, it's like rather personal moment, yeah, that educators should really celebrate cross-cultural communication, cultural diversity, not only during lecture and other types of study, yeah, but it's everyday life. And of course, it's the second part of the answer, it's to be open-minded, yeah, to have more new information, because, you know, our world is rapidly changing, developing every second, we can say, yeah. And from the other hand, we have so many sources of information. First of all, due to internet, and you know, if you're talking about globalization, we can say that internet communication through internet is one of the main features of globalization. It was the second part of question. It's what role does strong culture play in shaping effective communication? Is the main role, I suppose, yeah, because I have mentioned that culture defines everything in our life. Maybe not everything, a lot of things in our life, most of them, yeah. And you know, if we just ignore the culture background of our partner, we fail, because we will not understand our partner if we want to understand his or her cultural background. That's why I suppose crucial role cultural influence plays in shaping effective communication. Am I answering, or maybe you have other questions? We can continue, yeah? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your question. It's very important for me to have feedback and to communicate with you, yeah, in dialogue form, yeah? Okay, thank you very much for your question. And I want to have more questions if you don't mind, okay? So let's continue. We can say that international teams, it's like objective reality nowadays. And I want to add that if you are talking about MNC, so-called multinational corporation, or TNC, transnational corporation, you know, in literature, in information and sources, in literature and practice, we have different criteria how to define multicultural corporation. So we have company. How we can be sure that it is really multinational corporation, not just national corporation, yeah? And there are different criteria. It's like level of operating of this company and so on. But it's interesting that for many scientists and practitioners, one of the main criteria for multinational corporations is multicultural team. So if we have multicultural team, it's one of the only one, but very important feature of multinational corporations. And it's another criteria of multinational corporation. If we take managing board or the board of directors, for example, of multinational corporation, most of them should be from different countries. It's again one of the criteria to define a multinational corporation. So let's continue with benefits, I'm sorry, of cultural background of multicultural teams. It's again about customers. So we have such term as culturally sensitive customer service. Again, if we want to have such one, we should have representative from this culture, from these different cultures. But with benefits, we have challenges. So how we can manage these challenges? It's not easy, but it's something that we can do. Let's start from advantages and then disadvantages, okay? Step by step. Advantages of international team, it's productivity. So we have mentioned that one of the advantages is to have culturally sensitive marketing. It's important, but also if you take like the whole organization of a company, multicultural teams, they have these particular advantages of benefits, like first one, productivity. I suppose you can agree that productivity is one of the main criteria for effective operating of any company. So different cultural backgrounds can inspire innovation and productivity. Why? Because we have mentioned that culture, it's like the way of understanding something. Yeah, we can, for example, take person from one country with its culture and from the another one, and these two persons they can watch the same situation and they interpret in a different way because of different cultural background, and it can be great benefit because, for example, if you take one situation, I mean during our work, yeah, during our today activity in our company, for example, problem connected with our activity from business activity, I mean, and we can have different, may even opposite understanding of this problem. And if we understand these differences in a positive way, we can say that it can enrich the variety of services and so on. Also, we have already begun to analyze it's make our communication more sensitive to foreign audience. Also, first one, it was productivity. Next one, it was creativity. Yeah. So again, different ideas, they even can be endless because we have like different understandings, different interpretation from different cultures. So we can teach each others in this communication. Next one, very important, improve on problem solving skill. Again, we can say that we don't like problems, we don't like conflicts. It's obviously, yeah. But from the other hand, you know, conflicts, it's like part of our everyday activity. Because, you know, we have different interests in all of us. We have different interests in different needs, yeah. And sometimes these needs, they can be opposite, yeah. It can be contradiction, for example, between interests of one person and the interest of the another one. And in this case, we have conflict. And the main idea that we should solve this conflict, yeah. In this case, it is normal situation. We have conflict, we resolve this conflict. And to do it, we should have these problem-solving skills. And you know, when we communicate with people from other countries, from other cultures, it's easier for us to solve problems and conflicts because we understand that we are different and we should just try to find like common background, common basis for our differences. And in this case, we can say that multicultural teams, membership in such teams can improve problem-solving skill. Yeah, I like this definition very much, outside the box thinking, to think outside the box. Yeah, it's about, again, creativity, innovation, and so on. Because, you know, it's normal when we are communicating with people from our countries, from our culture, but in some way, it's like thinking outside the box, in the box, I'm sorry. Yeah, because we have the same ideas and so on. And when we can communicate with people from other country, it's thinking outside the box, because, you know, it's different point of view, yeah, different worldview, and it's really improves our creativity and innovation. Also, it's important personal growth and flexibility. Yeah, that's why it's so a good idea to communicate with people from other cultures, and our today's event, it's a good example, yeah, when we can really enrich our experience during communication with people from other country. Of course, we communicate with citizens, with person from our countries, and also, as for me, we should communicate with representatives from other cultures. It can enrich us. So if we take this case of multicultural teams, we should adapt to new situation and challenges every day, and it can really improve our flexibility and influence our personal growth. Again, it's connected with open-mindedness. Yeah, when we understand that all people, they are different, but we can solve all our problems and find solution. Thinking quickly, yeah, they say that when you are in multicultural team, you have to adapt, and you know, it can result that you become more quickly a thinker. Yeah, so especially in multicultural teams, where as soon as the members will start feeling comfortable, the better they will become more productive, spontaneous, and quickly think. So there were advantages. Challenges, again, you can see we mention all the time communication problems, and so on. It's really important one, and you know, it can have even like technical dimension when you don't understand language, yeah, and much more dimension. So that's why communication is difficult, even it's challenging, even if we take everyday communication, not cross-cultural, but with people from the same culture. It can be also challenging because, you know, it's important to understand what does our partner want, and also it's very important that our partner understands or understood us. And if we take cross-cultural level of communication, it's even more complicated. So, as we have already mentioned, it's lack of fluency in the team's dominant language. And we can find a lot of tips what to do in this situation. Again, it can be trouble with fluency and accent. Even today, we have watched different videos, and I suppose you pay attention that the first video about English, it was with obvious British accent, yeah, and the video last one about benefits and challenging of diverse team with obvious American English accent, yeah. So if the same language but the different accents, it's not easy to understand. You know, even for native English speakers, it's not always easy to understand accent of different type of English. But nevertheless, we should like cope with it. And you know, we have mentioned that in this case, the role of leader of group of team leader, or project manager can be crucial, because this person, he or she, should understand that such problem can arise and try to manage this problem. And you know, for example, let's imagine that I am a good manager, I am a specialist in my sphere, you know, but I don't know well language, for example, Chinese, very difficult language, yeah. And you know, for me, it will be difficult to express my opinion, you know, when I understand what is going on in my own language. I mean, yeah, I have knowledge and I have practice, experience, and so on, but it's not possible for me to share my idea because I don't know specific language. It can be a great problem. No, And again, let's turn to English. In this case, when we have people with different languages, very often we choose English as the language of communication because a lot of people know English. But again, let's remember, it's not like classical English, like British English, which we can say like traditional variant of English. It's so-called global English, globish, it's new term, with different accents, with mistakes, because the main idea it's not to say something 100% correctly in grammatical way, I say so on. The main idea it's our partner must understand us. Even we make mistake, it's not like something terrible. The main idea, understanding, and in global English we have very like simplified rules. It's not like maybe classical English grammar, but we understand each other in global communication. It's that's why it's convenient, it's comfortable to use this global English. Also, we have already mentioned during our previous meeting about communication, different types of communication. If you remember, for example, it can be direct and indirect communication. And very often we say that Western cultures, they have this direct style of communication, and they want to say everything like clearly, openly, and so on. And for example, for instance, for Eastern cultures, which most of Eastern cultures, they have indirect style of communication. It's not polite yet to say everything at once and so on. It can so-called mismatch, and it can cause troubles. Next one, again, connected with our culture, so-called world culture. We have mentioned that culture influences very much our life, and also it influences our work culture, how we do something. Again, it depends on our cultural background, and if we have people from different culture, it can be a problem. For example, if we are talking about hierarchical and non-hierarchical culture, if it is hierarchical culture, formal hierarchy is important for such people. So there is a boss and there is employees, and if we take non-hierarchical culture, for example, like Scandinavian countries, we can say that Sweden, for example, is one of the most so-called democratic. In this case, I mean democratic, so it's absent of hierarchy at workplace. Of course, they also have boss, but he or she is not a boss, it's just manager who is managing something, And if we take, that's all, only just as a function. It's more efficient to have person who is responsible for managing the whole process. It's the definition of boss in Sweden, for example. But if we take a hierarchical country, they have this strict formal hierarchy. This is director, this is employer, and all others, they are employees. They are non-directors, and if we have people from such different countries in one team, it can be conflicts, because first ones, they're used to themselves, to behave themselves in one way, other in another way. But also it's manageable, of course. I have already mentioned that teams from hierarchical culture expect to be treated differently according to their status in corporation. So their matter of status is crucial for such people because they have this hierarchical culture. It's normal that they have their own culture, but it's if we are talking about multicultural teams, we should adapt. And so-called egalitarian cultures, it's opposite culture for hierarchical. They don't mention your status. They are not interested in. And again, it's interesting that it's connected with our culture. Next one about our willingness to say something open and so on. For example, if we take this speaking up, this could be challenging for individuals, from Asian countries to say something directly. Why? Because it's so-called indirect culture, and such persons, they may just feel less comfortable to make their voice to be heard or to share ideas, especially if they are new in the team or have a junior role. Again, let's imagine our employee from hierarchical culture, and up to now has not a high status in a company. And this person, due to cultural background, because it's normal for his or her own culture, he or she understands that I shouldn't say anything because I have not high status up to now, junior status, junior role. And it's first variant. Let's imagine, again, Sweden, one of the most egalitarian culture, not hierarchical culture. They ignore status. They just have idea and they want to share this idea with other people. It's for such culture, for representatives of such culture, it's easier to them to share their ideas. So I suppose you understand what is the issue, what is the matter of this. And, manager or leader, as you wish, director, project management, he or she should cope with it. I have already mentioned Scandinavian countries, it's classical example. Next one, decision-making conflicts. Again, different approaches to conflicts and how to resolve it are also influence. How to make decision also is cultural determinant. For example, US managers are known to like to make decisions very quickly. And if you take Asian manager, such managers, they have to have more time to make decision. Let's imagine there is a meeting, business meeting, and we have representatives of Asian country and, for example, of Western country, and they should solve some problems. American manager, he says, we should do it quickly right now. And Asian manager, he or she says, no, let's think about it. We should analyze everything properly and so on. In this case, we have conflict, again, cultural conflict. And manager, project manager, or leader, it's good term, leader, should cope with it. Next one, problem with negative cultural stereotypes and prejudice. Again, it's about open-mindedness. We should ignore all these stereotypes. We even should overcome all these stereotypes, and it's one of the main factors of success. Because negative cultural stereotypes can be serious, disruptive to company morale. Increasing of stress and divergence of opinion. Also, it's connected with the cross-cultural teams because of cultural diversity. And let's watch one more short video about multicultural teams. It's about also managing multicultural teams. And in this video, we can watch specific strategies, what to do in this situation.
A team of people from diverse cultural backgrounds can have tremendous benefits, like knowledge of different markets and culturally sensitive customer service. Of course, that's when things are running smoothly. Unfortunately, cultural differences within teams can create obstacles to effective teamwork. How can a manager resolve these problems or even prevent them? The answer lies in knowing 4 main types of challenges and 4 main strategies for dealing with multicultural teams. Let's start with the challenges. The first is communication style. Western cultures tend to speak directly, while in many other cultures it's considered more polite to be indirect. This mismatch can cause friction and misunderstandings. Another challenge is language fluency. When non-native speakers struggle to find the right words, the team might not take their point of view seriously, even when they should. A third issue is authority. Some cultures are okay with flat organizational structures, while others are used to a formal hierarchy. Behavior that's perceived as respectful in one culture may not be seen that way in the other. Lastly, there are differences in how decisions are made. Conflicts arise when some team members make decisions quickly versus slowly, or analytically versus instinctively. Now on to the 4 main strategies for addressing these challenges. The most desirable is adaptation, which acknowledges cultural gaps and finds ways to work around them. This works well, but requires creativity, self-awareness, and time. A second option is structural intervention, where projects or tasks are reassigned to reduce friction or to compel team members to get to know each other better. Then there's managerial intervention. Managers can set ground rules and step in when there's a need for someone with authority. As a last resort, there's the exit option, completely removing someone from the team. This is costly, but sometimes it's the only way to salvage a situation. A manager who can diagnose the problem and identify the right solution is not only well equipped to get their team back on the right track, but can empower team members to handle future challenges themselves.
So you can see that there are different strategies, which we can use to overcome challenges, And again, you can see that if you take, for example, the last strategy that was mentioned, or, for example, the third one, manager intervention, it's connected with the role of leader, so it's important. Again, let's discuss this manager's role. Project manager or leader or director or employer can have an important role in solving international team conflicts. And I suppose it's really leading figure, leading person in this situation. So let's analyze strategies that you have watched in video in details. Again, it's due to Harvard research. First desirable strategy, and we can say it's the most desirable one, it's adaptation. But you have seen in the video, that it requires time and other resources. So it's maybe the most desirable one, but it takes different resources. Also, it's can be cultural intervention or other one when manager should intervene. Also, they mentioned in video one more strategy connected with like rearrangement. For example, when we have team and multicultural team, and this team is divided in some parts, and or sub teams, we can say, and each sub team is responsible for some element of our project. For example, we can like rearrange and take person, for example, from one sub team to another to manage it. And also one more option, it's cultural intervention. It's connected with this one. When we do something, for example, we can set rules, and we can say you should do it to operate smoothly in multicultural teams. And if you like don't follow these rules, manager can interrupt. And the last resort, so-called, it's completely removing someone from the team. It's the costly and the most, of course, the most extreme way. It's really as the last resort. So, and we can combine, as for example, we are managers, project managers, leaders in multicultural team. So we should combine these methods. And also, please pay your attention if we are talking about team building. You remember we mentioned that there is group and there is a team. Even if we take different terms, when we are talking about a group, we can use such term as director, as head, boss, and so on. It's more formal definition. And when we are talking about team, we use such term as leader or manager. It's also, that does matter because it's about functioning of each members of team. And so team building can be very effective one. and the main idea is collaboration in such a team. So benefits and challenges of international international groups. Is it worth it? So let's begin to go to our results of our lecture. So it requires a lot of efforts, and different factors should be taken into account. Culture, of course, personality, and working environment. And again, if we understand that we can manage it, it can be carefully manage it, yeah, it can be beneficial. But if we manage it in the wrong way, the team can get serious damaging the organization. And to prevent it, project manager or leader of team should intervene on time. It's important. We have discussed this different strategy, and team building gives the team the chance not to be alone in facing its natural difficulties. Yeah, please pay attention that these difficulties, they are natural, they are normal, and it's the role of team leader or project manager to cope with such difficulties. And other ways to manage multicultural teams. Again, it's connected with overcoming language and cultural barriers. Please pay your attention. We have already begun to analyze it, that it's very important to find a common language which can be convenient for all people who are involved in communication. Again, it's connected with the role of manager who can be who can begin this process to find this common language. And again, very often English plays a role of this common language. And that's why we can say that really English is one of the most common spread language, not because of number of speakers, because, you know, other languages, they can compete if we are talking about number of speakers, I'm sorry, with English, Chinese, Spanish, and other language. But nevertheless, English is a global language, I suppose. So, few useful tips. Encourage your team to learn a few key sentences or phrases in each language. Next one, very important in psychological one. You know, when we ask something, for example, and we don't understand, you know, we can be shy to ask again. You know, it's not always psychologically comfortable to ask to repeat. I suppose you agree with me. And it's a role of leader of multicultural team to normalize, to make it normal that asking something to repeat, it's completely okay. It's completely normal. Just ask, it's normal, and it's one of these rules, informal maybe rules, but nevertheless, we should follow. Next one, about remoteness, yeah? Now we are communicating remotely, and of course, when we are communicating in such a way, some problems can arise. It can be technical problems, for example, yeah? It can be problems with understanding, and it's normal to take it into account and again ask to repeat or say that I don't understand, could you please repeat? I don't hear you, could you please check your microphone, and so on. It's normal. Again, about accents, you know, so much attention is paid to accents because it's not always easy to understand. Even I have already mentioned, even if we take two English speakers from, for example, from Canada and from India, for example, yeah, they not always can, it's just example, or in other countries, people with different accents that they don't always understand each other, even native speakers. And let's imagine what is going on with non-English native speakers. So choose the language and use this language. Also, it can be additional challenges. And, you know, it's a good idea for leader to organize informal gathering, not formal, but informal, yeah, and to discuss all these issues. So, you know, it should be meeting devoted not to specific, so not specific business question, yeah, but it should be informal gathering connected with these issues, like which language we speak, can we ask to repeat? So we can, we should. And also we can, during this informal gathering, we can discuss different, like, ordinary questions, but these ordinary questions, they are important for us, like our food, yeah, our dress, our customs, yeah, it's connected with our culture. And when we discuss it with other people, it's important, and again, it's an element of team building. Also, we can, if we are talking about the role of manager, we can delegate, work assignments according to the culture custom of your team member. No, again, it depends on our cultural habits and so on. For one people, for example, if you are talking about Eastern culture, hierarchical culture is more appropriative. And that's why, for example, if we are talking for some responsibilities connected maybe with some duties in team, yeah, or maybe formal duty, not only formal, different duties, but connected with some this accent on responsibility. But it's important for such person, so you can delegate it. Also, very important element, also maybe not connected directly with our business activity, but very important, for example, list of holidays. Yeah, when we have people from different countries, such people, they can have different holidays. And for example, if it is just ordinary day for you in your culture, for your partner, for your colleague, it can be big holiday. And again, it's the role of manager to pay attention to it. And again, everything that I have mentioned is especially important when we are communicating, when we work remotely. Next one, consider different cultural communication styles. Also, we should take it into account. It can be non-verbal communication, we have already discussed in detail. Yeah, it can be so-called speaking patterns and so on. Diverse communication styles, everything is important. And just to remind you very shortly about different types of cultures, it can be so-called high context and low context country, and also its combination, so-called multi-active countries. And this classification was proposed by Edward Hall in his book Beyond Culture. Please pay your attention to this term anthropologist. Anthropology, it's science which research cultures, different cultures, and that's why a lot of ideas connected with cultural diversity theories, different types of culture, they are for anthropology and made by anthropologists. So it just to refresh your memory, we have already discussed. So it can be so-called high context culture and low context. And if we are talking about high context, about implicity, indirect communication. And if it is low context, like Western countries, most of all low context, it's explicitity, clear rules, and direct communication. And again, let's imagine, so we have communication between two people, and one person is from high context culture and another person from low context culture. It can be tricky, but it's interesting. It's, you know, it's again about our personal development, our skills when we must find solution, must like resolve some problem, business problem, and we should and must understand each other in this situation. It's definition, all context countries like United States and again Scandinavian countries. Next one, rather technical one, but nevertheless important. Plan projects around different time zones. Again, in our countries, we have different time zone. In Ukraine, it is this morning now. So, for example, it's example of these different time zones. And if, for example, we schedule our meetings with our partners from different countries, we should take into account, because it's important. It's maybe technical issues, but nevertheless, it can be great difference in these time zones. So we should make plans according to these time zones. Also, again, about barriers. When we speak in our native language, it's easier for us to express our ideas. But let's imagine you like member of meeting in multicultural team, and you should deliver a report. And for example, somebody asks you something in English or in another language that you know, but it's not your native language. And in this case, it can be one of the rules that we should have preparation time. So you mustn't answer immediately, because first, before us answering, we should understand what do they want from us, to understand language like element. And it can be one of the rules that it always should be preparation time. It's normal. And for example, if it is English native speaker asking something non-English native speaker, it shouldn't be problem when the second person asks for some time to understand. And again, it's one of the rules which can be introduced by leader of team members. So, and in this case, if it is our native language, we should be patient. Again, about open-mindedness, be open to all cultures and their diversities, their differences. And all time, when we have such possibility, we should learn more about a particular culture. As for me, I suppose you can agree, it's really interesting to understand other culture, and it has so many different dimensions, like cuisine, movies, I don't know, popular persons in these countries, and so on. So it's interesting. Also, if we are talking about multicultural teams, we can say that we can organize a cross-cultural training. So this training should be devoted particularly to cross-cultural communication, how to do it, how to overcome different barriers, and we should pay our resources to it. And for example, this training should highlight how to minimize the cultural barriers, how to avoid stereotypes and prejudice, how to appreciate your own culture and other culture. You remember we have mentioned we should begin from our own culture. How to improve skills, how to become a better listener. I suppose there is such a skill as active listening. When you listen person, it shouldn't be passive listening. It should be active one. And it's, again, one of the skills we should gain. Avoid stereotypes. There are so many ideas about how to do it. And it's idea of David Livermore. There is a fine line between being aware of cultural differences and stereotyping. So we should be very careful and avoid stereotypes. It should be like balance between understanding other culture and the whole understanding, and also avoiding stereotypes. And To avoid stereotypes, we should take time to become acquainted with every team member. And we should remember ourselves that each team member has a unique way of communication or working. Everyone is an individual and has a specific preference. Culture shape behavior, but does not dictate it. And so we have mentioned it. And one more important skill is empathy. You know, we should have not only like mental, like rational understanding of our partner, but also we should be empathic and to understand other person, not only like in rational way, I'm sorry, but in emotional way too. It's so-called empathy, and it's connected with understanding, the ability to understand and share the feeling of someone else, not only like rational thoughts, but feelings, our feelings. And practicing empathy has additional benefits too. You can see on the slide, these benefits provide support for multicultural employers, helps them solve issues different. It helps resolve conflicts quickly and effectively. You know, when you understand that, we understand it that if we are talking about conflicts, very often there is like emotional element, yeah, not only rational one. And if we understand it, it's like sign of our empathy, and it's much more easier to resolve conflict using empathy. Honest feedback, if you remember, we have discussed it in different countries. There are different like style of feedback. For some countries, it's more direct feedback. For other countries, it's indirect feedback. But in any case, it should be honest feedback, and we should take it into account. So especially if we are talking about a leader of multicultural team, this feedback, to have this feedback is one of the main responsibility of such a leader. And we have a few minutes, yeah, just a few words about this author, this scientist, Erin Meyer. If you wish, you can read her book, The Cultural Map. During our previous lecture, we have mentioned Hofstede, Hall, and there is like modern author Erin Meyer. So she like developed culture map, and we can use her ideas no, very shortly. Yeah, for example, if you take different countries, USA, American, it's from her ideas. Yeah. So, and also, if you wish, you can find her in information about her in internet. She's Erin Meyer. Yeah, she is also very popular business speaker. She is invited to a lot of different gatherings, and I'm sorry. She like give practical tips how to behave ourselves with people from different countries. For example, the United States of America. American employees are known for giving explicit positive feedback using words like fabulous, awesome, and so on. But they don't like to provide orally negative feedback. Yes, they prefer to do it in writing. They don't like to do it but face to face, we can say. Yeah, United Kingdom British employees tend to be less direct than Americans. And you know, if, for example, the US manager, he or she says fabulous, awesome, and so on, the main idea expressed by the British manager will be maybe and possibly. Yeah, so it's different cultural approaches. German employees have a tendency to give negative feedback directly, for example. French employees are more likely to give negative feedback in the workplace, and when it comes to positive feedback, their principal known use is a good news. Brazil, for example, employees are known for their indirect, implicit language. And other countries, Argentina, for example, Argentinian employees are considered to be the most direct in giving feedback among all Latin America countries. Nigeria, for example, if you take African countries, Nigerian employees are known for having a very direct way of providing feedback. And it's interesting that it's very unusual for other African countries, for example. In China, their employees tend to modify their feedback according to where an employee sits within the hierarchy of the company. It's example of hierarchical culture, and it's important for them. Mexican employees are less direct than Americans, I'm sorry. For example, they can say, that's interesting point, but another interesting point might be. So not so direct as other countries. And Australia, it's information about Australian employees. No, and the last slide, leadership qualities. Yeah, so this one, to be a successful leader in a multicultural organization, we should develop these concepts of leadership, like value-driven leadership, adaptive leadership, meaningful leadership, and social confident leadership. It's like the main concept connected with leadership in multicultural teams. So thank you very much for your attention. We have 5 minutes. Maybe we should have time for question. Yeah. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, if you wish, I can answer your questions. Today we have a brilliant example of cross-cultural communication. I'm happy because I like to communicate with representatives of other countries very much. It's honestly.
Okay, thank you so much for Miss Hannah. And we have question from participant in the YouTube. I'm ready read in the room chat. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I have already answered, yeah? Okay. So if you don't have questions, thank you very much for such opportunity to have communication with you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for Miss Hannah. Before I close this event for all participants, please open your camera. I will take a picture on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, another one. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Thank you. Thank you for your keen cooperation. Finally, we come to the end of visiting lecture today. We would like to thank you for Miss Hannah for their wonderful information and sharing your knowledge. We hope this information will be beneficial for all participants. At least we hope to have more collaboration in the future with University Custom and Finance. The visiting lecture for today and here. We hope to see you soon. Thank you and have a nice day. Thank you so much for Miss Hannah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Ya, bagi para peserta bisa diisi terlebih dahulu untuk link absennya. Terima kasih. iya. Wes bar jam piro iki 15.58.